The next time you do a major de-junk, pack the car and head to Goodwill. Think about this.
When you donate, say, a lamp to Goodwill, someone buys it and gives it a new home. We use the proceeds from selling your lamp to support programs like Goodwill's Excel Center, which helps adult learners earn their diplomas.
Adult learners like Hoosier Gloria Turner.
I had no idea that adult learners could actually have the opportunity to get a high school diploma. And once I realized that I had what it took to graduate, that was a stepping stone on to my educational journey.
Goodwill's successful full circle business model. You donate, bargain hunters buy, people facing adversity get jobs, others an education. Learn more about the mission of Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana, including its new presence in Puerto Rico. The Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC, is next. I am pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Kent Kramer. Kent is the CEO of Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana. Kent, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gary. Great to be here.
Good. I know you're very busy. It always amazes me at the amount of services and things that Goodwill of Central Indiana, Southern Indiana are into. Everybody knows the Goodwill name, especially because of the retail stores. I think that gets a lot of attention. How big, as we begin, because we're going to get into a lot of things that you do there at Goodwill, but the retail piece, how big a part of your business, if you will, is the retail shop?
Yeah, it's right around 60% of our revenue and probably close to 70% of our employee base. So 38% of our 5,300 employees are in the retail division. The others are in education and manufacturing and health.
I would imagine that the retail piece is really important from a branding perspective and getting the name out there. I think it's a kind of something that puts you right out in the public eye.
It is. And for years, people have referred to it as like the financial engine of our organization, the retail. So when people bring those goods by or they shop at our stores, the proceeds as a nonprofit, we're able to invest in some really wonderful programs that help people and help families. So it's the face. But when you peel it back, there's a lot of substance behind all that is Goodwill.
There really is an amazing amount of substance. I know Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana covers 40 counties now throughout the state of Indiana, but your reach extends far beyond that. It's tough to know where to start here because there's so many things going on. Maybe we start with the most recent development, which I think is very interesting, and that's opening up a presence in Puerto Rico.
That is correct, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and we're excited to be there. And folks have asked me why do that? And Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana has been around since 1930, so we're coming up on our 100th anniversary here in a few years. And for that entire time, we've worked hard to develop our territory. And actually, in those 40 counties, we've opened 76 stores, and we've done a lot of mission work. And not to say that we're at a point where we need to stop growing, but I've always believed that a thriving organization is a growing organization. So we began looking outside of our territory and what's available. And Goodwill's pretty developed across the country, but there was one area, and that was Puerto Rico, that was not developed. Goodwill had never been there. So we worked with Goodwill International and went through a process and put a business plan together, presented that to the Goodwill International Board, and was awarded that a couple of years ago. So we've been working hard to get a presence on the island, and very happy to say that last week we opened our first of many stores there, and are also beginning to offer services there as well.
What do you anticipate in terms of your presence there? You mentioned stores and services. What do you anticipate over time, how that will build out?
Yeah, so in our territory, there's about 3.3 million Hoosiers in our 40 counties that we serve. There's about the same number, just shy of that, in Puerto Rico. So it's a very heavily populated island, but it's like 100 miles east to west, 35 miles north to south. So there's a lot of people on that island. So we think we could open multiple stores and high schools and provide a lot of services like nurse family partnership, but really helping people in Puerto Rico increase their independence and reach their potential, just as we do here in Indiana.
Well, I thought it was interesting that the CEO of Goodwill Industries International, in awarding this contract to you, talked about what you do here in Indiana and beyond, and the ability to implement programs that address the needs of community and then really quantify the impact of those programs. Really a vote of confidence, I think, in a big way in the things you're doing right here at home.
We appreciate the opportunity, and I think the Excel Center is a model there that we brought to life back in 2010, and we started licensing the model a little over a decade ago, and now there are 47 Excel Centers in 10 states and the District of Columbia, all serving adults that do not have their high school diploma. So really providing them an opportunity to engage in the economy and really make a difference, not only for them, but their families long term.
Let's talk about these Excel centers, because I think it's a great example of uh, the services that Goodwill provides that maybe a lot of people don't know, but it's so substantial. Launched in 2010, these are tuition-free high schools for adults. Did I get that right?
That is correct. And there's actually 24 in Indiana now working to help those individuals, about a 500,000 working age Hoosiers that do not have a high school diploma. So those 24 Excel Centers, we operate 18 of those, and then we've worked with the Goodwill based out of South Bend, Evansville, and near and dear to you and I, Terre Haute
Right.
opened their first Excel Center this fall. So providing opportunities not only for a diploma, but 99% of our grads walk across that stage with a industry recognized certification. 40% go on to college. And again, these are people that are in their 20s, 30s that dropped out, and many didn't have hope for an opportunity like this. So I really grateful for the Indiana General Assembly for the support of this, and then also Notre Dame and their Lab for Economic Opportunity, because followed our graduates, and they show that it's worth the investment for the state, but really worth the investment of time for the individuals that attend the Excel Center.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about it, because I know there are many, many stories, but some examples maybe that has to be a very worthwhile moment for you and others at Goodwill when you see these individuals walk across the stage and graduate from these Excel centers. Can you characterize the impact through maybe a personal story or two that these Excel centers are having?
Yeah, I'll tell you, and all of any story that I tell, these are individuals that are open about their stories. And I'll tell you about Dylan, who was couch surfing in Anderson, Indiana. His parents had lost their automotive jobs, and the family was in a ditch. And Dylan didn't have a place to stay. He was in high school and ended up working at a gas station and giving gas to his friends. So he got arrested, had a record, and when he came out, he heard about the Excel Center. So he enrolled in the Excel Center and got his high school diploma, went on into a management position at Goodwill, and now he is in a local supply company, as is a homeowner, getting married. Another one, Razan, who lived in California, Googled adult high schools and found the Excel Center. He got his pregnant wife, drove across the country, enrolled in the Excel Center, and ended up in pre-dentistry school now here in Indianapolis. And Gary, there is story after story after story of individuals who felt like their backs were against the wall. I can think of one young lady who had her first child at 13, second child at 16, and worked one low wage, low skill, high turnover, no benefit job after another till she learned about the Excel Center. She got her high school diploma, pharmacy tech certification, ended up working for a local hospital system, and then saw the need for farm techs out there and opened her own pharmacy tech certification company. And she's doing that across the country now and helping people just like herself. So story after story, Gary, of resilient Hoosiers making it happen through education.
Those are amazing stories, and I know there are a lot more. You may have mentioned this earlier, but how many the Excel concept launched in 2010, so it's been about 15 years now. How many students have you impacted with the Excel centers? And tell me again, how many states and where they're located in?
Yeah. Here in Indiana, we've had over 10,000 graduates. Currently have funding in place and the schools in place. We're ramping up now, 6,500 students. So it's over that whole time, it's been growing. So it's pretty significant. And if you think about this, so Anderson, Indiana, I lift that up again. They've had over 1,000 graduates.
Hmm.
So a town like Anderson, 40-ish thousand population, 1,000 adults that had dropped out of high school now have a high school diploma, certification, and they're engaged in the workforce there in Anderson. So it's an economic engine for some of these communities. So they're in multiple cities in Indiana, but also in Kentucky, Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, District of Columbia, multiple states. And then we've got a team that's out working right now, working with other states. It's all through Goodwill, all through the Goodwill network, which is across the country. So that's Goodwill's, besides retail, is about workforce development and providing opportunities for people. So it's a great match for Goodwill. We got a captive audience of organizations that want to start this. So it's exciting work to be involved with.
Yeah, and just one more chapter in the Goodwill story in terms of what you do and what you provide in terms of services. You mentioned uh, workforce and job training. That's another piece, right? A significant piece of what Goodwill does.
Absolutely. And I talked about the 3,800 employees that we have in retail, and that's to us, it's a retail store, or to many, it's a retail, but it's a workforce development operation. We wrap resources around them and really help people find their way, but also individuals that we serve. We employ about 1,000 people with disabilities, reentry, providing people second chances. They've been touched by the justice system. Got a very extensive program there, and really just trying to help, locally Hoosiers find their way to economic success, and really so that they can take care of their families and provide a great future.
I've got to believe part of your success, obviously, you have to have funding. And you can point to these success stories. So when an organization or the state legislature, whomever it might be, when they ask about that return on investment, it's probably pretty easy for you to point to what that return on investment actually is.
It is, and the Excel Center is an example. We've done a study of individuals that enrolled, and then where were they? Where were they post enrollment? It almost lines up to a T with what national studies are with a high school diploma. The high school person that has a high school diploma versus somebody that dropped out in a lifetime can earn $1 million more,
Mm.
and that's been done study after study. Notre Dame, the Lab for Economic Opportunity, showed that an Excel Center grad, once they graduate and they get that first job, it's like an increase of $10,000 in their income, and then it just goes up from there. So they're a direct point to ROI. Nurse Family Partnership, the other program, there's
Yeah,
been
talk
lots of
about that
studies.
because I know that's a substantial program.
It is. Yeah, we currently serve right around 2,500 low-income first-time moms, and that's where we pair a registered nurse with that family, and that registered nurse will spend from the first trimester of pregnancy until that baby turns 2. They'll visit them in their home or in a safe location about 50 times, and they'll just pour into them education and knowledge and talk about prenatal vitamins at the beginning, but then reading to their children, healthy eating habits, those types of things. But yeah, serving 2,500 families. But the studies that have been done on that show a 7-to-1 return on investment, because not only do we provide those important prenatal and services, we also talked and work with that young family on education, on employment, and so there's a 7-to-1 return on not only health outcomes, but that's societal outcomes and benefit outcomes that they might have reductions in because they're on a great path.
Can you give us an idea or a sense of demand in terms of the workforce training and the education piece, but all this whole workforce development, as to whether the demand is increasing. The economy has been, generally speaking, fairly good here for a little while. But do you see the need for these services on the rise?
We do. The education is so important for individuals to engage in the economy, and the jobs that cater to people without an education, automation and AI, and there is an intentional effort by businesses to do everything they can to save on those costs, and those happen to be some of the positions that are going by the wayside quicker. So getting people education, getting people certifications in some of these middle skill type jobs that are needed to engage in that economy are really important. So we see wait lists in our schools. We have lots of applications for our jobs and programs. So we're going to keep fighting a good fight as long as they keep showing up.
Right. How do you see demand as it relates to demand in more urban areas like an Indianapolis, or in more rural areas? Because they're different and sometimes serious challenges in rural areas. What do you see as the difference there?
Gary, we really don't. I mean, we operate, stores and schools in Shelbyville and in Muncie and in Newcastle and Kokomo and Lafayette and Indianapolis, and we see a significant need and interest in these programs in all of those communities.
In terms of, Kent, what keeps you up at night? What's your biggest challenge? You've got so many things going on, doing important work, certainly. What's the biggest challenge in your view facing Goodwill and the services you provide?
Yeah, there's sometimes uncertainty in funding. We do rely a lot on government funding, right? We hope that we continue to show that this is a great investment and that there is a return and that there's reduction of subsidies needed that government would have to provide. So that's it. And then also just we rely heavily on donors. We rely on the Dick family to clean out their closets and their garage on occasion and bring stuff by Goodwill so that we can do these programs, so that we can invest in people. And it's quite a machine when you have 76 stores and you're feeding donations through and providing jobs and opportunities for people. So we just want to keep the good going and keep people seeing the value in donating and dropping by Goodwill. And so just keeping the whole thing in a forward motion is what's important to me.
Yeah, how about the relationship and the importance of support in the business community? Those relationships, I would assume, are very important.
Absolutely. And we've got some wonderful partners and supporters, and Goodwill also. We have a local foundation, and that helps fund a lot of our programs and a lot of our services where we don't have funding for. So we rely on philanthropy, and we've got just a lot of great partners and organizations that support Goodwill as well.
Much more ahead with Kent Kramer, the CEO of Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana, when the Business and Beyond podcasts were presented by PNC, when we continue right after a break.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
We Build Indiana. The Laborers International Union of North America are men and women building roads and bridges to get Hoosiers where they're going today and a new energy infrastructure that will keep Indiana competitive tomorrow. LIUNA's over 12,000 statewide members also grow local economies, earning good union wages, shopping where they live and work, and paying taxes. We build Indiana for good jobs and stronger communities. The Laborers International Union of North America. We are LIUNA.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast. We're presented by PNC. My guest this week is Kent Kramer. Kent is the CEO of Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana, but it's an organization that not only spans some 40 counties here in Indiana, but is doing business in multiple states, now in the island, the Commonwealth, right, of Puerto Rico, in a partnership that just launched. Can't talk about a little bit about you. I know you from your Indiana State University ties, both of us graduates of ISU. But where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Muncie, Indiana, and I am a Bearcat. For usually when you say you're from Muncie, you got to identify what high school you went to, and usually if you say Bearcat, you usually like respond with 8 state champions,
That's right.
single class state championships. But yeah, so I went to grew up there and worked in a grocery store. Fell in love with that type of business in Muncie, and that's where I gravitated after I graduated from Indiana State. I went to work for Sam's Club, and I did that for 11 years. Moved 8 times with Sam's Club. It was
Wow,
just
right. Where you moved around the country?
yeah, Missouri, Indiana, Washington D.C., New Jersey, Pennsylvania. It was at a time when it was just growing fast, and if you raised your hand and said, "I'll go," they would
Yeah.
send you.
Yeah. Is that
So
what was it about the grocery business that kind of attracted you?
I loved the interaction with customers, and whether it was new customers or people I'd see every week, people have loyalty to where they shop, and I just really enjoyed that. But I also enjoyed like setting up a display and watching it sell, or
Mhm.
tracking items and what was top sellers in a certain store. And as I grew, which stores performed well, I could see what leaders were doing well. And so for me, it's always just been about the commerce side of it. And it's actually I spent 11 years at Sam's Club and then a couple of years at Kmart. Gary, a couple of really long years
Mm.
at Kmart. They went through bankruptcy while I was there, and Goodwill came a calling through a recruiter back in 2002, and they were looking for a VP of retail, and it just looked like a great opportunity. It was here in Indiana, based in Indiana. I've got 4 kids, so they were all really young at the time. So it was a great place to raise a family. And Goodwill, my predecessor Jim McClellan was here for 41 years before me. I'm celebrating 10 years next month at Goodwill as a CEO. So I've been here 22 and a half years, but very good, wonderful environment to work. Family is important, and we've maintained that. So having 4 kids and being from Indiana, it's just been awesome to
Yeah.
work with this organization and grow with this organization and be a part of its history.
What was it like to work for a guy like Jim McClellan? Because he's one of my favorite people. I think he did so many great things for Goodwill and for Indiana, for Indianapolis and for Indiana. Just such a great leader.
He was and he still is a great mentor. One of my great honors in my career has been to nominate him and speak to his being enshrined in the Goodwill International Hall of Fame, which happened about 5 years ago. And so not only was he recognized as a wonderful leader here, he was across the Goodwill network, very innovative with things like the Excel Center
Yeah.
and opening a charter high school here in Indianapolis 20 years ago, the Indianapolis Met. And so I learned a ton from him. But one of the great things I learned from him, and this has been supported by the boards that governed him and Goodwill before and still do. There's still some overlap, but and that is don't be afraid to make a mistake if you're really working towards good. And he talks about hitting home runs and hitting singles and triples
Yeah.
and striking out every once in a while and having an environment where you're allowed to do that within reason, right?
Right.
So I've really appreciated that over the years and having that autonomy to run an organization where you're expected to try things and do things and it's been a wonderful opportunity for me to work with somebody like him.
As you look going forward, Kent, where do you see Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana in, say, the next 5 to 10 years, or that little longer term vision? You're so busy continuing in that growth mode. What would you like to see the organization look like in a few years from now?
Yeah, I hope we will always continue to help people increase their independence and reach their potential. And that is, there's populations out there that really need it. People with disabilities, unemployment rate is 80% for those individuals. If you don't have a high school diploma, the unemployment rate is 2x what it is for people that do. And if you have to check a box, not that there's boxes, but if you had to check a box that you have a background of and you're looking for a second chance, it's really tough. So helping those individuals that really need a hand up into society and into jobs and into education. So, but I see us continuing to do it on a bigger scale across the Goodwill network. And this is not, it's not just Goodwills, it's across the country. There's a lot of consolidation of nonprofits, right? You're trying to reduce overhead and provide more investment into the mission and into programs. So I do see more consolidation happening. We merged with Goodwill of Southern Indiana in 2017. We took on Puerto Rico here recently. So expanding our footprint, using technology to keep nimble and be able to make decisions quickly, but really growing the footprint of what is Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana, and insert any other name you might want to there.
All right. Kent Kramer is the CEO of Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana. And Kent, I tell you, I think it's impossible to overstate the impact that Goodwill has here in Indiana and obviously beyond as well. And that's in large part due to your efforts. And I really appreciate you taking the time and look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Gary.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast, where a weekly conversation with achievers in sports, business, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes, more than 200 episodes, and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.